As he watched the other person leave, Taejai picked up the phone and took off like the hero in an action movie, while the bound Sumi shouted like a superhero, but no matter how fast he ran, he couldn't outrun the award-winning special effects car. He simply stood there, watching as the other person walked away, and I just couldn't help but chuckle while sitting in front of the screen. Soon, you'll see what happens. Taejai took the left phone, followed text clues to a car, then zoomed away. Wongsee and his brother quickly followed, and since Sume was still in their hands, Taejai had no choice but to listen, like a well-behaved child. He found an envelope in the glove compartment. Inside was a key, and at the subway station's iron cabinet, he found a bag, but upon opening it in the car, he found a toy car, and nestled in the loading frame was a bag of flour. As directed, Taejai drove to the boss place, who greeted him warmly like a host. He thought this was the business partner had been looking for, but Taejai looked completely clueless, not knowing how to respond, so he whipped out the bag of flour. He demanded the boss release Sume and her mother, and the boss thought it was a joke when he heard that. Just then, a call came in. It was Wongs's surprise he had Taejai deliver and anonymously called the police. The humiliated Boss Wu was almost fuming blood, picking up the bag of flour and flinging it right at Taejai's face. But now wasn't the time for that. Boss Wu told his goons to toss Taejai to the cops because he needed to hightail it out of there. Taejai ended up in quite the predicament, thrown right into a net. When he came to his senses, he saw Boss Wu brandish a dagger, cut the net, and Taejai fell onto his car, making Boss Wu panic and step on the gas. Before seeing Taejai's face, he shoved his arm in, tossed Taejai inside. Boss Wu's situation allowed no pause. All he wanted was to save Sume and her mother, so Taejai used his car to block Boss Wu's getaway. Seeing that he was about to escape, Taejai took off right after him like a superhero in a movie. Subtitles, but when he took a look into his trunk, he was completely frozen in place, and he wasn't the only one. Even the arriving cops were wide-eyed at the sight. It turned out the car that Jung-hee gave him had Sume's mother's body stuffed in the trunk, and it was hollowed out. The organs had been removed long ago, and when Taejai was brought back to the station, he was unsurprisingly the prime suspect, staying silent through the police interrogations. Not until he saw the card in his wallet, given by Sume, did he recognize it the Dark Knight card. Meanwhile, the police captain was combing through Taejai's background, only to discover the plump guy was already too. He promptly called the station. Soon, chaos broke out there. Reviewing surveillance footage, he saw Taejai fought his way out and escaped in 4 minutes 30 seconds. In that time, he knocked out 6 police officers and stole a file, while Sume was being taken home by an old lady. Inside were all the orphans they had captured, part of Wongs's brother's special project, followed by the utterly inhumane organ trafficking scheme, and Sume's mother's boyfriend was already in their clutches. Jung-see was ready with an axe, intending to question him about Sume's mother. He was going to check for leaders behind the scenes, but surprise. His brother turned out to be a psycho. Help. Help. You jerk. You scared the life out of me. What are you doing now? Just eating. Can you open your eyes a little? These two brothers are more ruthless than each other, though Jung-see hasn't done his own dirty work. His henchman is a real tough guy, wiping out Boss Wu's crew all on his own. Meanwhile, the vengeful prince found a middleman, tossing him the phone Jung-see had left behind. He asked who bought the phone, and this little boss had just stepped into the real world himself. Having absolutely no understanding of lethal weapons, the eager and somewhat obsequious little boss promptly handed his business card over to the prince. He said the buyer specialized in selling human organs, and based on that lead, the prince tracked down the brothers to the KTV. Just as he was about to hop on the elevator, he unexpectedly ran into Wongsee. Though Wongsee had never seen the prince, he was already in deep enough with blood on. Sensing the danger, Wongsee immediately dialed Jung-see without a second thought. He used code words to warn Jung-see to leave. The unaware prince entered, seeking someone. Fortunately, a captured minion helped find his possessed follower, who saw the prince last time. He had narrowly escaped last time, but not this time. After some serious questioning, he said Sume had been sent to the organ trafficking location. He wasn't sure of the details, only Wongsee and his brother knew if she was dead or alive. The prince's eyes went red with rage, and he grabbed him with a knife, ready to burst out looking for. Little did he know, as he stepped out, he ran into a killer who had just followed him into the bathroom. Seeing no one around, he randomly started shooting at every stall. When he heard a movement behind the door, the killer cautiously pushed it open. Never had it crossed our minds that it was actually an innocent girl inside, yet the prince completely disregarded the gunfire. He chased the killer into the bathroom with an axe, but the killer was no pushover either. Whipping out a small blade, the two began to duel. Just as Wonksy dramatically appeared on the scene, the prince finally realized this guy wasn't a good guy, and while the killer waited to be smacked around, he ended things with a bang. He ended that chapter, and seeing cops nearby, Wonksy tossed a phone to the prince and vanished. The prince quickly grabbed the phone and dashed out, just in time to spot the Brazen brothers. As they sped right past him, the prince, who had rushed with the gun, chased after them frantically with his axe, cursing his own insufficient speed. As they vanished into the distance as if he'd seen a ghost, the engine roared while he felt like a monk chasing clouds in distress. The prince spotted a car at the roadside, axe in hand, and by the time the cops showed up, it was all over. Along the way, Wonksy called the prince. Prince was just eager to know if Sume was all right, but Wonksy didn't give a clear answer, cryptically stating that Sume was too young for mature organs, and the only thing they could sell were cornies.